In the first 3 months of 2026, more than 45,000 tech workers lost their jobs. And over again, the executives doing the cutting pointed at the same culprit: artificial intelligence. Block fired 4,000 people, nearly half its entire workforce, gone overnight. CEO Jack Dorsey said intelligence tools had fundamentally changed what it means to build and run a company. Atlassian cut 1,600 employees. Its CEO said the company needed to reshape itself for the AI era. Amazon slashed thousands of corporate roles. eBay followed. Pinterest followed. Same playbook every single time. Same polished talking point delivered to the press. AI made us do it. But here is the part nobody in those boardrooms wants you to examine too closely. A January report from market research firm Forrester found that many of the companies announcing AI-related layoffs did not actually have mature AI applications ready to fill those roles. They were cutting people first and figuring out the AI part later. That gap between the story companies tell and the reality on the ground has a name now. It is called AI washing. And in this video, we are going to pull it apart completely. What is real displacement? What is corporate spin? And what all of it actually means for your career? Let us start with the raw data, because the numbers tell a very different story than the headlines suggest. In 2025, companies in the United States attributed roughly 55,000 job cuts directly to artificial intelligence. That number comes from Challenger, Gray & Christmas, the outplacement firm that has been tracking corporate layoffs for decades. 55,000 sounds enormous on its own, until you learn that total U.S. job cuts in 2025 exceeded 1.2 million. That was the highest annual total since the pandemic year of 2020. It means AI was cited in only about 4.5% of all layoffs last year. The other 95.5% had absolutely nothing to do with artificial intelligence. Now zoom into 2026. Tech layoffs have already passed 45,000 in the first quarter alone, with AI cited as a direct driving factor in roughly 20% of those specific cuts. That is a real and notable increase from the year before. But it still means that 4 out of every 5 tech layoffs are happening for reasons that have nothing to do with any AI system. Budget pressure. Organizational restructuring. Pandemic-era overhiring corrections that companies still have not finished working through. Tariff uncertainty rattling the global supply chain. The boring, old-fashioned business problems that never make for a viral headline or a trending topic. Now here is the statistic that should genuinely make you sit up and pay attention. A survey of 1,000 U.S. hiring managers published in March 2026 found that 59% of them admitted they deliberately exaggerate the role of artificial intelligence when announcing layoffs or hiring freezes. 59%. Not a slim margin. A clear majority. And their stated reason was devastatingly simple. The AI narrative, and this is a direct finding from the survey itself, plays better with investors, boards, and the general public than admitting to poor planning or missed revenue targets. Think about what that actually means. More than half of the people making these workforce decisions are telling you it is about AI, while knowing full well that it is not. The term AI washing borrows directly from greenwashing, the well-documented practice where companies exaggerate their environmental efforts to appear more responsible than they actually are. AI washing works the same way, but in reverse. Instead of pretending they are saving the planet, companies pretend a machine took your job so that no human being in a corner office has to take personal responsibility for a bad decision. One management professor at Babson College described it as the least bad reason companies can use right now. If a company blames layoffs on tariffs, it risks political backlash. If it blames poor earnings, the stock price drops. But blaming AI? That sounds forward-thinking. It sounds inevitable. It tells shareholders we are being proactive. It tells the public this was simply out of our hands. The AI framing removes personal accountability from leadership entirely and turns what is actually a management failure into a technology story that nobody is supposed to question. And this pattern is not theoretical speculation. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy initially linked the company's massive corporate cuts to generative AI and AI agents, reducing the need for human workers. He later walked that back, pointing instead to pandemic overhiring and too many layers of middle management. UPS eliminated tens of thousands of positions through facility automation and logistics restructuring. But the actual core driver was the loss of its Amazon shipping contract, not some miraculous AI breakthrough in package sorting. There is also a powerful herd effect at work here. Once a handful of major companies started citing AI in their restructuring announcements, smaller companies followed suit eagerly. There is safety in numbers. If everyone is framing their cuts as AI layoffs, no single company stands out for criticism. The narrative becomes entirely self-reinforcing, and each new announcement makes it easier and more acceptable for the next company to reach for the same convenient excuse. Even OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, the person arguably most responsible for the current AI boom, acknowledged in early 2026 that companies are engaging in AI washing. When the man who built ChatGPT says the layoff narrative is inflated, that should tell you something important. But here is where it gets genuinely complicated. Because some of the displacement is very real, and pretending otherwise would be just as intellectually dishonest as the washing itself. Research published by Anthropic in March 2026 found that workers in their 20s employed in AI-exposed occupations saw unemployment rise by nearly 3% during the first half of 2025. Job finding rates for workers aged 22 to 25 trying to enter those same fields dropped by about 14% since the launch of ChatGPT in late 2022. Those are not abstract economic indicators. Those are real people sending out dozens of applications every week and hearing nothing back. Customer support has been hit the hardest and the most visibly. Block's 4,000 layoffs were heavily concentrated in this department because the company's AI-powered customer service systems demonstrated the ability to resolve 70 to 80% of customer inquiries without any human involvement whatsoever. Similar patterns played out at eBay, Pinterest, and several home services platforms that automated their frontline support. Content creation and marketing roles are the second most affected category, followed closely by data entry and routine administrative work. A Goldman Sachs report estimated that if AI were fully deployed everywhere it currently could be, roughly 2.5% of total U.S. employment would face displacement risk. That is not nothing, but it is a far cry from the apocalyptic full replacement narrative that dominates social media timelines. And crucially, the same Goldman report found that workers in AI-exposed occupations are currently no more likely to actually lose their jobs or earn lower wages than workers in any other field, outside of those specific concentrated pockets. There is also an essential distinction that consistently gets lost in the noise. Some companies are cutting workers because AI genuinely performs their specific work now. Other companies are cutting workers to fund their AI ambitions. Those are completely different situations with completely different implications for the people losing their jobs. Meta, for example, laid off 1,500 people from its Reality Labs division, while simultaneously committing hundreds of billions of dollars to new data centers and top-tier AI researcher salaries. Those employees were not replaced by AI. They were sacrificed to pay for it. That is not disruption. That is a budget reallocation wearing a disruption costume. So if you are watching this and wondering whether your job is next, here is the honest answer. It depends entirely on what you do, how you do it, and whether your employer is serious about AI or merely performing for Wall Street. Start by asking one clear question. Has your company actually deployed AI tools that demonstrably do your specific work, or are they just talking about deploying them someday? That distinction matters enormously because there is a staggering gap between corporate announcement and successful implementation. A National Bureau of Economic Research paper examining data from the US, UK, Germany, and Australia found that over 80% of surveyed firms reported no meaningful impact from AI on either employment or productivity over the previous 3 years. That does not mean AI will never reshape your industry. It means it matters less right now than the people cutting your job want you to believe. The real immediate threat for most workers today is not the technology itself. It is executives who weaponize the technology narrative as cover for decisions they were planning to make regardless. So here is what you can do right now. First, learn to read the difference between a company genuinely investing in AI capability and a company performing AI theater for its quarterly earnings call. If a layoff announcement does not include specific details about which AI systems are replacing which job functions, be deeply skeptical of the stated reasoning. Second, invest your energy in the skills that remain hardest to automate. Complex judgment calls, cross-functional collaboration, anything that requires you to navigate ambiguity and make decisions with incomplete information. Those are the capabilities that stay resilient across even the most aggressive AI displacement forecasts available today. Third, pay close attention to which industries are genuinely transforming their operations versus which ones are simply trimming headcount under a trendy label. The pattern in the data is remarkably clear. Companies with the most mature AI programs tend to talk about redefining and expanding roles. The loudest AI layoff announcements almost always come from the companies with the least mature AI implementations. If this video helped you see through the noise, do one thing before you scroll to the next video. Hit subscribe. This channel breaks down the real story behind AI, work, and the economy. No hype, no panic. Just the data and what it actually means for your life. Drop a comment below and tell me, has your company blamed AI for changes that felt like they had nothing to do with technology? I genuinely want to hear your story. And if you know someone who has been stressed about AI coming for their job, send them this video. Sometimes the most useful thing you can share with someone is not a job listing. It is perspective. I will see you in the next one.